Hello again, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, 2020 in Clear View, Trends Shaping the Year Ahead. A few logistical notes and housekeeping items that I want to go over before we get started. You'll see two different ways to communicate with us throughout the webinar. There's a chat box and a Q&A box. If you could please use the chat box for all technical issues and the Q&A box for any questions related to the content of the webinar, that would be great. With that, I'd like to introduce Zoe Dowling, our SVP of Research here at Focus Vision. Zoe is an eclectic blend of researcher, technologist, sociologist, and marketer, and uses her extensive research expertise to help clients best apply Focus Vision's technological solutions. At this time, Zoe's going to turn off her camera and jump right into the presentation. Zoe, would you like to get started?
I will. Thank you very much, Rachel. Thank you very much to everybody joining today from wherever you are in the world. As Rachel said, we're going to be having a look and a little bit like casting the crystal ball, kind of looking into it and see what's ahead for us in this year and maybe in the coming years, of course, because it's not just a new year, but a new decade. And so let's get started with where we're going to go. So here we go. I was fortunate enough to attend CES, the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas, along with 170,000 other people a couple of weeks ago. So that's a great sort of springboard and starting point of what kind of tech trends are we seeing this year and you know, sort of foreshadowing the coming years. And this is a good barometer and why I thought this was a place to start. But of course, technology, consumer technology, it's all around us. It's really shaping and molding the worlds that we're in today. And so when we see what's going on there's a lot of impact for us, of course, as marketers and diving into customer experience. So we're going to be talking about the impact of the technology trends that we saw on marketing and customer experience. And then I'm going to wrap up with, well, what's the implications for research and insights? So that's what we're going to cover. As Rachel said, please, I'd love your questions. So put them in the Q&A and we'll get to as many as we can at the end. So diving into what are the tech trends that I saw. And of course, these halls are vast. If you've ever been to CES, you know what I'm talking about. And if you've looked at some of the clips, online and the reporting from it, you'll have a sense of just how unbelievably massive sort of these 4, 5, 6 halls that they are, and they're just enormous. So it's hard to get a sense and to really dive into. I wasn't there to dive into a particular area. I was walking around trying to get the zeitgeist. What is it that I'm feeling? What am I seeing from one hall to the other? And so that's what I'm going to be talking about here. The first one is that there was really this sense of technology, not just for technology's sake, but technology being about making our lives better. And just to illustrate this, I saw this sort of coming through in a number of different ways. The first, and I seem to have a little glitch here with my builds, never mind. The first is, of course, the connected home. I'm just going to, you know, whilst I'm talking, just play this little video. It's a little bit bumpy because this was me walking around, but this was in the Amazon area. And Amazon, and I'm going to talk about them a lot because they were very, very, very prevalent. They did a great job of showcasing themselves and not just the product. We all know Amazon, you know, those boxes that get delivered on your front door, but how they've infiltrated our lives in so many different ways. And one of them, of course, is the connected home. And they did a great job of showing the devices that they have, the Echo, the Dot, Fire TV, and the Kindle, and those different things. But also they've created a lot of partnerships with other different devices that use Alexa. There's a lot of voice. I'm going to be talking about that a lot more as well. So this whole idea of not just Amazon, of course, there've been just so many other players doing it, that you're seeing how that we're now really coming into the reality of the connected home. And you can make your living space exactly the way that makes sense to you. A real large part of this is personalization. Not just, of course, you know, in years gone by, this has been how we decorate our home, for both from the soft furnishings and also, you know, how we're decorating our walls and painting and wallpaper and so on. But this is also about, you know, lighting that doesn't just dim the way that you want, whether it's bright or dim, but also the color, the shades and areas. This is about educational elements that come into play that, you know, if you've got children, there's a lot of interesting connected devices that can be used for educational capabilities for them. Safety, it's another large feature. there's so many different ways that we can run our lives in this connected home, and it becomes very, very personal and specific to us. So I thought that was an interesting way. The next one was around health and wellness. I'm going to say again that last year this was an area that I found really exciting, and that didn't disappoint at all this year either. You know, consumer health and wellness technology continues to evolve in many, I think, exciting but importantly useful, good ways. This example that I have on screen here for IQ, they're really an interesting brand. They've been at CES for 4 years. 3 out of those 4 years they've won CTA, the Consumer Technology Association. They're the people that put on CES, and they won a CES Innovation Award for Tech for a Better World with this innovation. And so what they've done, they've actually developed a low-cost way to monitor your vision at home. So and it's retailing. I had a look. They're saying, you know, it's around $200. I can see on the it's not Kickstarter, it's the other site, but one of the crowdfunding sources, like, you know, they're saying, hey, you can have it for about $150. What an interesting idea. You know, we know that our vision changes. People are loath to go to any kind of doctor. So why don't we kind of do this monitor at home, see where we are? And of course, with other technologies like Warby Parker, you know, the ability to order your glasses online. In fact, they've got an app that you know, using AR, where you can see what a pair of glasses looks like on you before you order it, all from your home. So all of these coming together, all of these things, I think, hopefully going to be making our lives better, going beyond. I mean, there's a lot of fitness trackers, as you would expect, but certainly a lot of applications. And hopefully, again, this tech for good, tech to keep us healthy, to keep us on track, to go for wellness. Now, the other area I wanted to call out was sustainability. And actually, I didn't see as much of this at CES as I would have liked. Now, again, of course, I'm wandering vast halls, so I'm sure I missed on an awful lot. But one area this, I think, overall came through was in the vehicles area. And if I just play this little clip here, hopefully you will hear the sound. Let's just see if we can get this going. So what we had there was just an example. So this was Hyundai and Uber came together as a partnership, and this was there's a small kind of drone-like mock-up of their flying taxi. Now they actually had a real-life, full-size prototype on display, and it was ginormous. You expect it's helicopter size. So they had this prototype on display, and they're aiming, and this is very ambitious, and who knows whether they'll get there, but they're aiming to actually make this functional and available in 2025. So that's only 5 years off. Whether they will actually achieve that remains to be seen. But what's interesting was there was a lot of big ideas from all sorts of automotive companies who are saying, you know, we're going to help with this last mile. We're going to help with urban congestion. We're going to help with and going to that kind of sustainability. Well, less noise pollution. Okay, great. But actually, we also want to reduce emissions. So this Hyundai flying taxi uses smaller electric-powered rotors. So it's electric-based. So you're not having those emissions. So again, you can have less noise. It's going to be able to have a range of about 60 miles, and it can only be charged within 5 to 7 minutes, which is quite incredible. So it actually could change a whole lot of things going on. Of course, we would then have things flying around in the sky even more. But if it was less noisy, and of course, if it reduced emissions, those are good things. And that's what I will say for the vehicle tech. There were some big, ambitious ideas, a lot of concepts. Toyota, Fiat, Mercedes, Ford, many more. So I thought it was a very interesting area, because these are the automotive companies are really going into the what is the travel of the future within our cities, what's the last mile, and how can we do this in a way that's also being more sustainable. Okay, I'm going to move on. So just this last thing on kind of technology for good. There was an awful lot of last year, and they were very prevalent this year. Steve Koenig from the CTA, he's the Vice President of Consumer Research, and he said in his Trends keynote, the research summit, which was on the Monday, the day before the halls open, you know, he talked about a lot of different things, and he actually talked about social robots finding their place. I'm going to actually fundamentally disagree with that, because I think this is more about technology finding an application rather than providing a solution. What a lonely world that we're in, where we need to have a robot. And again, if I just play this one here, you know, this robot that can shake its hand to you as you go up, as you can, you know, can smile at you, it looks all kind of cutesy, and then you kind of interact with it. As you're going to see here in a moment, this is me pressing his nose, and then that's where you get the screen to say, oh, you know, how can I help you? I know that this is starting to be used, say, in Japan, where, you know, that there is a large challenge, and developing countries are very much having this of an aging population. And is this a good way to try and come back to that kind of loneliness of the single person households? Is this also a good safety way to make sure, you know, that there's something, you know, that the person's being monitored for, you know, if there's a fall, can we get help there quickly, and so on. On the other hand, I would really like to see technology for good being more about how can we really connect people even more? How can we use those autonomous vehicles to come pick up an elderly person to go actually interact with other people in their community? You know, I would rather find solutions rather than try to find the applications. And that's just my take on what I feel social robots are. Nevertheless, prevalent very much this year. I do think we're going to see the rise. Let's see what the adoption really looks like in the end, because of course at the moment these are expensive. You know, I think the one that I talked to in the video I had there was around $3,000. So moving on, the other thing that was quite notable, and maybe not surprising, but those unexpected brands that continue to join the party. So just taking a couple of different areas, you know, would you expect sort of brands from travel and tourism, from agriculture, from beauty? These aren't technology brands. Yet you found a number of different brands that you wouldn't associate from technology there. And actually I went to a CMO panel discussion in the C space, and you know, one of the questions was posed, well, why are a lot of non-tech brands here? And it's, you know, it's this, well, solving problems, being part of the conversation, a diversity of information, of course, watching out for potential disruptors and more. So there's a lot of different reasons why a non-technology brand would be there. But then there's the ones that are also really looking to use technology at their brand's core. So the first one, if we take this travel and tourism, Delta. Now Delta was there for the first time. They exhibited, and they had a keynote on the Tuesday morning. And their chief executive, Ed Bastian, actually laid out what was a fairly ambitious plan on how they're planning to use technology to digitize the flying experience. They're going to be bringing in machine learning, robotics, something more tangible, free Wi-Fi, and texting. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, huh? Big data analysis. They're looking to really enhance and make a very comprehensive entertainment viewing system. And the whole idea also is what they're trying to do is not just have, this isn't just about the flying experience. This is about the full customer journey. You know, starting from sort of traveling around and looking around to booking the travel. But then when you're, you know, before you're leaving the house to get to the airport, one of the partnerships they've done a partnership with Lyft to try and get, you know, sort of, you're again making that when you leave your home to get to the airport. So they're thinking about it very much as a full ecosystem going on there, bringing in partnerships, really looking to leverage different types of technology to bring this all to life. Now, another brand, and not the first time that they've exhibited there, but who would expect to see John Deere? It's not at all who springs to my mind when I'm thinking about consumer technology. So what were they doing there? Well, they were there to showcase, and as well as last year, you know, sort of current and future new technologies that will enhance farm productivity, profitability, and I think incredibly importantly, sustainability. You know, technology now is playing an increasingly important role in helping to feed sort of a growing world population. There's a lot of sustainability elements within there. Interestingly, they also received CES Innovation Awards for their brand new, and this sounds like I know all about it, but their brand new 8XR tractor that integrates artificial intelligence, the Internet of Things, advanced automation, all of these different types of technologies to help farmers work more efficiently, gathering data to make more informed decisions. And then, of course, that will there'll be machine learning there. It's going to increase sort of an intelligence as it goes on. So basically, we're seeing the increasing rise of the connected farmer. And this has implications across sort of all society. So I think it's fascinating that they were there. They were very prominent, had a massive display because, of course, their machinery is kind of large as well in the AI section. And I thought that was an interesting play. Finally, I just wanted to talk about beauty. Now, L'Oreal was there. This was actually their 7th year of attending. And of course, CES is actually, in this incarnation, has only been, this was the 10th anniversary. So L'Oreal was there from fairly early on. And as there was some interesting, I attended a talk, sort of a interview discussion with Gwaib Balach. He's the global vice president of L'Oreal's technology incubator. And so really a lot of interesting conversation there. It's actually worth listening to, watching, if you have the time. But he was talking about, well, you wouldn't think about this marriage of beauty and technology. But there is a lot of synergies going on. Something they've done from a lot of their customer research is all about, getting the right shade of, say, foundation or eyeshadow, but particularly foundation as a real pain point for their customers. Something that they have been looking at, how do we get some sort of useful innovation? Now, of course, that's one part of it, and it is useful, but his and their vision is far grander. His vision is about this marriage of beauty and technology, is about helping people evolve their beauty systems as they move through life. So it's kind of interesting. And actually, one of the things that they did at CES, they launched their new beauty tech innovation, Perso. It will only be in production, I believe, next year, so 2021. But the idea here is that it's kind of interesting. So it's a smart device that creates custom formulas for lipsticks, foundations, and skincare. So what the person does is they have an iPhone app, the personal iPhone app. The user takes a picture of their face. Then, of course, you've got AI-enabled technology that's doing sort of analysis of their skin conditions. And believe me, this kind of this analysis, I was haunted by smart mirrors as I was wandering through the halls in so many different areas. All kind of doing some analysis to say, you've got these kind of large pores here, you've got far too many wrinkles there, you've got beauty spots there. It can be a little bit depressing. But the idea is okay, how are we actually giving you products or directing you to products that are going to be, I guess it's that personalization that's going to be good for you. And this is the whole idea of Perso as well. So you take that picture, then they do a sort of identifying the skin conditions that it's bringing up. It will then bring in location data, which I think is interesting. So, hey, you've got, I live in Los Angeles, there's high UV count, there's a lot of pollutions. So it brings in all that kind of information. And then lastly, the user has the ability to add in their concerns, like I want to reduce dark spots. And then it takes all of that, and then what comes out is a single-use customized formula. So it creates kind of a one-use dose, if you like, for you to use for that particular day, that particular morning, whatnot, and off you go. So a real hyper-personalization. I also wondered whether that's potentially good for sustainability, if there's reduced waste, if you're having maybe less packaging, if you're trying different products because you're still struggling to find the right thing. We'll see. Of course, there's a long way to go. But again, it's just this idea of I think, interesting brands coming to the party, utilizing technology that's becoming sort of more mature, it's becoming more mainstream. And again, for the consumer, for us as our everyday lives, there should be something good, about this. It should actually make our lives better. Now, the last thing I'll say about CES, and I said this isn't, fully comprehensive, but these are the things that really jumped out at me, and I think it's a good indication of where things are going. And one thing that did actually strike me, and this is actually in contrast to last year, where it was very clear that they were really touting AI, and certainly 5G was absolutely everywhere last year. This year, there wasn't really a big thing, like a key idea. And I don't think that's a bad thing. If anything, I think that's a really positive thing, because we have so much going on that we're still trying to wrap our arms around. And so there's a lot to be done. So again, I apologize, my build seemed to have gone a little bit awry, but we'll get to that last one. The first one that I wanted to talk to you about is IoT. And, you know, again, going back to Steve Koenig in his opening 2020 trends talk, he talked about, you know, the last decade was very much about the Internet of Things, you know, really coming into being. And today we're actually talking, in this decade, it's going to be the intelligence of things. So I thought that was quite an interesting idea. And certainly IoT, and I've already talked about the connected home. It was all over the floors. This idea that the halls, I should say, this idea of personalization. Just this image that I pulled in here is about the just lighting. Again, it maybe feels like a small thing, but you know, you can have different types of plugs, lights that you can, you know, you can light your hallways, your rooms in different ways. You can create that different feel. It can be a security thing. It could be a comfort thing. Again, just personalizing a home to the minuscule detail. And you know, again, that's just a small, maybe more aesthetic thing. But of course, sort of IoT's got massive applications. It's coming more and more into our homes. It's coming more and more into our cities. So that there's this is still being built out. It's still maturing. The next one I've already talked about, artificial intelligence, to a degree, but you know, it was an example where, you know, we're still getting there, and maybe thankfully, you know, there's a long way to go with it. I mean, as you may know, the term artificial intelligence was actually first coined at a conference in 1956, so quite a while ago. The concept's been around for a very long time. Of course, now we're actually seeing, we're getting to a point where it becomes more of a reality because we have the computing power, because we have different ways to analyze data, because we have all sorts of progress along with hardware and software. But there's also still a long way to go for real true AI. But of course, we're seeing, you know, think back to that John Deere example. You know, they were in the AI section. They are trying to bring together that IoT, it's sort of AI-enabled technology for tangible benefits. The only kind of real kind of futuristic view of AI on display was Neon, and this is this fella here, and he's a humanoid artificial intelligence avatar, and it was quite creepy because this was I wish I'd had a video. I didn't seem to take a video of it, but basically he's kind of looking at you, looking down and taking notes, and you know, it really does look like an actor had filmed this. The whole idea between this Neon, it's, I think I said it's backed by Samsung, is really that they're getting this next level Siri or Alexa, a chat box with a human face and personality, and so it can respond to questions in just about real time, whilst giving facial expressions such as a smile or a raised eyebrow. So kind of really, you know, talk about the personification of this and making a full-bodied kind of chatbot. So they were at pains to say they're a long way off, but is this a view for the future? And again, you've got to say, well, and what are the applications and how we're going to use it? Lastly, voice, I think, is a really interesting one. Voice was absolutely everywhere. I talked about Amazon being everywhere because actually Alexa was everywhere. Let me just see if I can get this clip to play.
Here's to staying more charged than your phone this week. Cheers. Enjoy your Coke energy.
So it said Amazon did a fantastic marketing job of having Alexa everywhere. And what was also on display was a lot of partnerships. This was just a great kind of way of people, if they wanted a Coke energy, and they could go up, say, Alexa, order your Coke energy, and then they would come up with sort of a number of different types of quips coming out there. So it was kind of fun. People got their drink from it, and of course it showcased voice. And voice was really prevalent, really prevalent kind of everywhere. And you know, I saw so much of Alexa. I vaguely forgotten about Google's offering, but of course that's prevalent. And I have to say, one of the reasons that is because Google does their own kind of separate area. It's a real showcase. Apparently it wasn't quite as elaborate as last year, where they built a little mini theme park, but it was still very elaborate. The lines to get in there were just absolutely enormous, as you can imagine, the wait time. And just as I was moving through, I didn't make it in there. So of course I didn't have a good view on what Google was offering. It was just what was so interesting with Amazon. So I saw them in many different halls with their different types of partnership. And so again, they just did a great job there. And maybe they are sort of getting that first mover kind of edge going on there. But of course, Google did preview some new features. One of them is where the digital assistant reads long form content, so like a news article and so on. There's also the interpreter feature, which is ready to be rolled out. And of course, for those of you in the US, you might be familiar with Microsoft ads that have been going on since around Thanksgiving, offering their Microsoft Translator. So there's a lot of interesting movement within sort of voice and how that's progressing along. And so, we've been talking about voice for a number of years, and a bit like mobile, I've heard more than once that this is the year of voice. Do you think maybe we are really in the year of the voice? I think that's an interesting one. And again, I'm going to come back to that. But voice was very prevalent, and I would say that's probably the technology that's most like right now. And there's been much higher adoption in just the stats. And I should have looked up new numbers, but Amazon got Alexa into a huge number of households just within a couple of years. So that adoption has been incredibly quick. And you think of on your smartphones, if you've got an Apple, you've got Siri. If you've got any of the other devices you might be using Google Assistant, Cortana, Microsoft Cortana. There's a number of different ones. So interesting play on voice, but we're also, operating. We're going back to the connected house, operating our house through voice controls rather than sort of a screen or digital interface. So let me move on. I did just see kind of one question, IoT, so Internet of Things, and then intelligence of things. And that was Steve Koenig from the CTA, as he was talking about how we're moving from just, I guess, getting this, really taking this concept of the Internet of Things and moving and just becoming more intelligent as they talk to one another, and again, making our lives, the idea is to make our lives better. And that goes back to the first theme about technology for good. And of course, that's got a lot of different connotations, but we're taking the connotation of technology for good in terms of it really having an application, but a solution for within our lives. So what does all of this mean, and what did I get a sense of in terms of marketing and customer experience and where we're going this year, and what do we need to be watching out for? And there's the Hey Google area that I was just talking about. You see they had this whole big vast sort of area that was actually separated from the convention halls. So fun space, hopefully next year I'll get in. So in terms of marketing, customer experience, more of the same, maybe elevated of the same, human centricity. That should really be no surprise, but it was certainly that came through. And I think for marketers and for brands, as we're thinking about what experiences that we're delivering to our customers, we all harp on over and over again, we are in the experience economy, and that is incredibly important because it can't be ignored. And we haven't cracked that nut yet either, about making sure that absolutely every single touch point interaction that a person has with your brand fulfills the overall brand promise, that experience that's being looked to be delivered from a high level, when sort of at the top of the brand story. But it's also making sure that really thinking about customers. And so it's coming to this idea of people, again, hopefully with very positive intent. That was something Samsung made very clear about. I was fortunate to get into their keynote on the Monday evening, and they were all about technology that's changing lives, and people at the heart of what we do. Came over and over again. And it wasn't just Samsung that was saying this. I was walking the halls, it's sort of in the main brands halls, and I was having a look, and there was a lot of similar kind of hashtags in use, like what moves us, connected living, making life intelligent. And there was this sense of how does this work for you? How does this, even on a small level, make your life better, and how you're connected, not just in a digital sense, but with one another. So this idea of human customer centricity, experience, personalization, Again, take that L'Oreal example, the beauty tech, and coming into, real personalization on skincare that's good for you. And ultimately, what I took was, we're all about people. Well, and it's all about the customers. It's all about human centricity. You really need to understand your customer. We can't get away from that. You can't just sit in a sort of an isolated view of your company or even just your industry. You've got to understand people, the world around them, how things are changing. Which is a good segue into the next thing, is about keeping abreast of change. I'm pretty sure this is obvious to everyone, but it is worth putting out there as a reminder. People's lives are changing so quickly. Your customers' lives are changing so quickly because change is all around us. And so this was something that was brought up, another one of the C-Space panel discussions. It's more than ever, marketers need to remain on their toes to keep up with the changes. And of course, not just with the customer, but also within marketing, MarTech, business overall. We are in this real period of change. We're in the midst, if you will, of the fourth industrial revolution, which is just a phenomenal level of scale of change that's going in within our society globally. And so we need to be doing our best to keep abreast of that change. And then going back to that human centricity, continuing to think about the value that your brand is providing to your customer, the experience at every touch point. How are things designed? Is that design inclusive? Does it provide value? Does it provide positive experience? All of these things are kind of rolled into one another. The other thing that I definitely think is an implication for all of us, particularly thinking about marketing and customer experience, is that everybody in one way or the other is a technology company. As you said, technology is all around us, not just consumer technology, but it's very prevalent within business. And technology is transforming that of business, as I've just alluded to, and talking about the fourth industrial revolution. We are really having this business transformation, shifting business models that were really built for the 19th-20th century into a true 21st century business model. And technology is at the heart of this in many ways. So of course we saw the unexpected exhibitors at CES, but there's other approaches. And one thing that I thought was interesting at one of the CMO, the C-Space CMO panel discussion, Dara Trester, she's a CMO at Carbon, talked about 3 ways that she sees technology transforming businesses, transforming brands. The first is, and they're all interlinked, just to say, but the first, talking about innovation. It's really facilitating product service innovation with new media products, packaging, sustainability. Again, I kind of keep coming back to that because I really feel that brands, we have a real responsibility to be talking about sustainability, to be looking at it, and technology as well overall, to be using this technology for good, for a broader good as well, and not just the individual people's lives. But innovation on these different areas. This innovation is what differentiates a brand from its competitors, and gives first mover advantage. Just an example that came to my mind was FIGO pet insurance. So if any of you actually have pets, you might be familiar with them. When I adopted my cat last year, I did this kind of frantic search on, okay, hang on, I guess I need pet insurance now. Don't know where I'm going in. And what was interesting was there's a lot of players that maybe I'd heard, but this new one, FIGO, their differentiating factor is actually the way that you interface with the brand. They have a really slick app, sort of a portal that goes on, and what they're trying to do is to build it out in different ways. Not just you can see and track the history of your pet's health and the visits they've got when they need their vaccinations. They're also smart on how you can put claims in and so on, but they're also trying to create a portal hub, a community. I have to say, for me, I'm not particularly interested in that, but it was interesting that that's their differentiator. That's what's setting them aside, and that's giving them a little bit of first mover advantage. And as it was, I went with them. So innovation, technology transforming businesses, but brands, innovation. The next one is interesting, and again, maybe no surprise at all, but data and data utilization. We know that we're swimming, we're drowning perhaps in data, but getting to this point of using data in ways to really reach and connect with your customers in ways that you couldn't have before. In some ways we know more about our customers than we have ever known, ever. We have more data points, although the challenges is about getting and using that data in the right way, or getting our hands or being able to identify the piece, and I might even say the nugget that is important. I say nugget because when you think of the scale of the data that is available to businesses, the large data, it's immense. But how do we find those pieces that really help us reach and connect with our customers and prospective customers? And the last thing that she said that I thought was really interesting is about, technology transforming brands. And I think it is very much linked to this kind of data utilization, is about providing and helping CMOs have accountability. Not just CMOs, but all business leaders. Accountability, showing up in the right way as a business leader. So I think I like this a lot. It really stood out to me because I think that there's a lot of really good pieces in there. It's a good summary of really thinking about technology. Even if we aren't so-called technology brand, but technology is transferring your business, your brand in one way or the other. The other thing I'd say about technology transforming brands is, of course, partnerships. I think I've alluded to this a lot, and I put on screen here because Amazon really was everywhere, and you can see this was this picture of their partners was actually all just within the vehicle area. So you can see that they've got a really good number of partnerships there, but of course their brand partnerships are across the board. And I think so that even if the brand itself isn't within consumer technology, chances are they may well be partnering with brands that are. So that means that this world needs to be understood and played within. So some of the well-known older examples, think Red Bull and GoPro. I mean, who would have put those two together? I mean, it makes a massive amount of sense, and it was very successful for them. Another older one, Nike and Apple coming together. But more recently at CES this year, partnerships I kind of started to see with Integral, and starting to be more announced with Delta and Lyft, Hyundai and Uber. Okay, that's two kind of similar kind of areas in terms of transportation and aviation. Here's one that I still, I've seen this picture I don't know how many times now, and I still raise my eyebrow. Lamborghini and Amazon Alexa. Fascinating partnership. I can see what wonders it does for Amazon. I'm not quite sure what Lamborghini gets out of it and what that means for their brands. And that's why I kind of come back to, marketers really got to think about what are these partnerships? How do they make sense? How do they make sense for audience? And what does each part bring to the table? So an interesting space. And I think that kind of tech to tech, tech to non-tech partnerships could well be defining points for brands to be involved in. And as I've just said, an important area for marketers. Okay, so in the last kind of wrapping up section and really thinking about an area that's obviously very close to my heart and home, and perhaps yours as well, is what does all this mean for research and insights in this broader world, and of course just what can we expect to see. Now I firmly believe this, and I was thinking about this yesterday as I was just kind of going over this and putting the final touches on the webinar today, and I was like, no, I feel that I'm not just saying this because I want this to be true, but because I believe it's true based on the different more qualitative data points that I've been looking at, but also backed up by some studies, industry studies, our own that we've partnership last year in Focus Vision, but others across the board, that this idea that insights is in demand, that we're going to see this. Yes, I do think that, we're in a year where there's a lot of change. In the US, there's the elections that always, no matter what, in election year, can create financial instability. There's been murmurings of recession cropping up. The stock market's doing incredibly well right now, but people saying, is this sustainable? Is the bubble about to burst? So there's a lot at play there. And of course, the reason I bring that up is because insights is always, and to some degree marketing as well, somewhat easy targets to go after for cutting budgets. So there's that kind of that concern. Yet at the same time, in order to move forward, in order to have those data-driven business decisions, which we hear a lot, you need insights. Here's just a couple of things to say to try and back this up. So this is from Fortune Business Insights. This is a report, a study that they released in November last year. And they were saying, the global customer experience management market size and overall, and of course, insights is just one part of that. But if it's valued, or it was valued at just over $6 billion in 2018, they're projecting it's going to reach nearly $24 billion, $24 billion by 2026. That's 6 years off. So there's, if that's going to increase, insights is one part of that. The other thing, this was a study that we worked with Harvard's Business Review Analytical Services late last year as well. And we found that, speaking to over 200 senior marketing and business leaders, 98%, so nearly everybody's firm in the belief that understanding customers is crucial to creating those relevant customer experiences. Yet we have a disconnect. Only 23 say that they understand their customers and are very firm and, hey, I understand very well why my customers are acting the way they do. So there's a disconnect in between that kind of customer understanding. And I stand corrected, I'm just looking at my notes here, it was actually over 600 business executives who were surveyed, and this was globally. So, there's big, these, this kind of almost ubiquitous, hey, we've got to understand our customers in order to craft those relevant customer experiences. But a relatively small portion really feel that they can understand why their customers act the way they do. And so that kind of brings me to this kind of novel idea of, well, why don't we ask? and to go back to Samson saying, people at the heart of what we do. And again, the other brands that were really talking about that human centricity. Well, if it's true, you need to talk to people to understand them. Their lives, their motivations, their desires, their fears. You have to ask. You can get a lot of information from the wonderful sort of larger big data sets on play, but to get to people's emotions, you've really got to talk to them. I've already talked about brand partnerships, and as that's developing as an ecosystem, because that was a real sense that I got about this kind of ecosystem between brands and how it connects into our lives, really evolving. There needs to be strong understandings about each of these players contribute and support their customers' lives. And so that kind of, this novel idea of asking was brought up in one of the C-Space panels, brand storytellers. And it was just, it was kind of simple. What happens when you ask? Getting that direct feedback. And here we are, we're surrounded by some of the sexiest texts, drowning in transactional, and behavioral data. But you can't keep going back to the basics and asking questions. So the one thing I will say, of course, I do think, in terms of implications for research and insights, that just as important as asking is, going and getting that primary data, the small data from your surveys or from your research communities. What is incredibly important, just as important, equally important, maybe more important, is the human intelligence required to make sense of the data and really extrapolate the insights that make an impact. So it's going back to that data utilization and feeding into accountability as business leaders. I do think that the data that we provide and the insights that we can deliver to businesses is increasingly important, and the value of it is being recognized. And so that's why I come out and say, insights is in demand. Now, the one thing I would say, and this is a little bit of a sidebar, but I did want to put it in there, was just going back to voice. I think that, and what I see, and I think not just myself, but other people in the industry have seen this year, but also last year, maybe even the year before, that, we are in this kind of transitional period, and that the focus is on insights, and how insights is delivering value within the businesses. So breaking down silos, putting systems and processes in play to acquire, extract, and disseminate insights. That's kind of incredibly important, and the focal point over any new sexy data collection technologies. We have a great toolkit, and we're still grappling to really use that tool correctly, or in the best possible way. And mobile, I wish we had cracked that nut. And we're asking questions in the way that really that get the answers that we need. That people aren't just skimming over, and all of these good things. So I don't think we need to be looking at a new collection mode. But as I've been saying this, and you're all looking at my screen going, haha, but she's got voice on there. And I think because voice was so prevalent, and because there's real applications, and we've seen that the connected house may well be operated by voice in a very near future. And so I think before long, we're going to have to look at voice as a real data collection approach, figure out the applications, the best practices, and so on before it runs away with us. So, maybe we really are the year of the voice. I think I would regret saying that, but I think it's something that we need to keep our eyes out and actually start to actively think about. So just to kind of round out and conclude, I've alluded to this, we are in this period of transition, just like we are in business overall. And we're in this period of the reshaping of insights. And this year, you know, is going to be similar to last year and in previous years, in that we're going to see more mergers, acquisitions, uncertainty. You know, I was in, again, C-Space, there was a panel discussion with S4 Capital. Those that you're familiar with, Martin Sorrell, he was the former head, and in fact, he was WPP for more than 3 decades. And of course, he left a couple of years ago. He set up S4 Capital, which has reached unicorn status, so reaching that over that billion in a very short period of time. And of course, you know, he is provocative, and make no bones about it. And what he was saying here was incredibly provocative. And I have no comment one way or the other on you know, why Eric Salama left Kantar. But I do certainly agree with him that there is going to still be disruption, and maybe, you know, sort of what might feel at the time sort of a, I don't know, violent change, but certainly a notable change taking on. And I think we will see that within Insights. However, what I will say as well is that, you know, this is part of the continued evolution that we're in. You know, there's no next bigger thing in Insights, I've already said, is because we're still working with what we have. We're in the midst of this rapid and fundamental era of change. And that change is all about changing titles and roles. You know, titles, you know, departments that we're sitting in. You know, are you a customer experience professional? Are you an insights professional? Are you a researcher? Are you an analyst? You know, all these different. I don't think it really matters. I think that the skills that you have are incredibly important and much needed within business. And it's just going to be a reshaping of how it fits within the organization. I do think that within sort of the Insights team, if you like, if there is still going to be one, we are going to see expanded skill sets. And to make us all richer, as I've said, I think that the skills that each one of us have, if you're more proficient in looking at textual data, more qualitative data, whether you're sort of your numeric analysis, whether you're sort of a generalist, you know, whatever it may be, these are all incredibly important skills and don't diminish. But we're also going to see other skill sets being brought in. And I think that's just going to make it all the more richer and more exciting, actually. I think, as I've said, you know, technology, that we aren't just looking at technology as the magic bullet, the next shiny thing that's going to solve all of our problems, which I think as we went into the turn of the century and certainly into the teens, it was like, oh, wow, look at this new technology. Hey, we've got eye tracking, we've got digital communities, we've got mobile surveys, we've got text analytics, like, you know, there's this real growth and expansion of our toolkit. And in some cases, we're trying to work out, hey, it's there, so what can we use it for? Whereas really, it's like now we can take a bit of a breath, and it's like, okay, so what is the right technology that's going to provide this solution? So it's technology, it's not as a magic bullet, but really facilitates. And I think that goes the same for automation. You know, automation is a good thing. It's not taking away our job, so to speak. It's helping. It's going side by side. Again, Steve Koenig talked about you know, machine and a robot working side by side, and by robot, it's just more like this. Maybe it's artificial intelligence. You know, that kind of automation or machine learning, just to make things more efficient, to make it better. So I think technology offering solutions, blended iteration. I think moving away from this sort of stark. You know, this is not a new thing to say by any shape or form, like, you know, the qualitative, quantitative divide, but more just, you know, it's not one or the other. It might be a mix of the both, and it's not thought about as such stark contrasting sides, but bringing them together and iteration, really taking that iterative approach, smaller studies that answering a specific question that might lead you to a next quick study because you needed a follow-up. So that we're hopefully moving away from putting the kitchen sink into one kind of study, into one survey, but saying, okay, this is what I'm really focusing on right now. Whoa, didn't expect to see that. Let's go back in and dive on that. So really iterating on the information that we have, bringing in lots of different data sources, not just also from the primary research, but bringing in different pieces so that we're really getting that holistic picture. I mean, it's not easy. And I don't think we're going to crack it this year either, of course, you know, but this is just the continuing evolution that's going on. Storytelling is still there. We still need to find a way to to make accessible in the way that we present those insights, to make it have impact. So I think the continual way of how we're delivering those findings, those insights, is incredibly important. And again, it's sort of this evolution of our role, and that takes us right back to the beginning, but it's consultants within the business, as educators on how do you ask a good question? How do you make sure that you're getting the data you want? How do you look at data in a way that, is informed? Don't just take that number as a set value, but who did we speak to? How could that impact that number, and how we interpret it? That might sound pretty obvious to us, but just data literacy, and all kind of data, qualitative, quantitative, numeric, textual, and so on. But again, I think that's the kind of role that we are playing within organizations. And so, this is something that, I kind of thought, oh, this could be a massive spinning wheel, but that make us all feel a little bit nauseous. And say, but the idea is that this isn't one to the other, but just a continually evolving piece that we're going through as insights, but of course businesses are going through their own changes as well. So I'm going to wrap up with what possibly is my favorite quote, and I use it often because I think it's so applicable in our world today, and it serves as an excellent reminder of where we are today. And it's Bill Gates, and he said this back in the 90s, in the mid 90s. And we all always overestimate the change that will occur in the next 2 years and underestimate the change that will occur in the next 10. Don't let yourself be lulled into inaction. So, we know that we've got a lot of very immediate challenges right now. But of course, 2030 is going to look vastly different from 2020. So we should take the opportunity to hunker down. We know we've got a mountain to climb, but we can do so by taking one focused step at a time. And that's really what we should be doing as we're now in 2020 and starting out this decade, embracing all of the change and maybe chaos that's going on, and knowing that good things are going to come through from it. So that is what I have for you today. I'm going to have a look and see if there's any questions. I know I've running quite tight to the hour, so maybe time for 1 or 2 questions. So over to you, Rachel, to see if we've got any come in.
Great. At this time, we'll open the floor for Q&A. You can type any of your questions into the Q&A box, and we'll just give everybody a few minutes to do so. But I do have one, Zoe, that did come in while everybody is typing. Let me see if I can pull it up. I'm sorry, things are working a little bit slowly on this side. So I know that there was a research section of CES. What did you get from that, and how do you think that can tie into, customer experience?
Sure. So there was a research summit, and in fact there was well 2 interesting things, because the CTA, they put on the research summit, hugely in demand. There's often not enough space in the rooms, and I talked about 2 of the ones that really stood out for me. One was the 2020 trends that the CTA Vice President of Consumer Research talked about. That's Steve Koenig. I highly recommend anybody go have a listen to that session. I thought it was fascinating. I think it frames very much where we are and what we're doing. So that was an important one. The other one was, of course, the L'Oreal discussion, because I think it's this thing about, where are brands, what are they grappling with, and how does consumer research come into play with this? And it goes back to where I netted at was, insights and demand. You've got to understand people. So that is what I took from the research summit. There was also the number of different panel discussions that I went to in the C space, which was really around brands and the CMOs and brand storytellers and so on. And again, a similar idea came to me. It's just, the sort of the real close relationship between insights, between research, and of course marketers and brands and just the whole organization.
Thanks. Looks like we have time for maybe 2 more. So what new advances are being made in text analytics and voice capture? Did you see anything there?
I didn't see anything there, and I wonder if that is just the nature. It could have been 2 things. One, just the nature of CES and not being more with consumer technology and how people are interacting with their daily lives. Equally, though, it could have been that I just missed that kind of detail. So I didn't see anything there. That's not to say that there isn't there.
It's interesting. Okay, so we have time for one more, and this is a pretty good one. How do you see technology helping us to do research differently? And are there any new methods that you saw in collecting data?
Yeah. Um, uh, so let me just go to the new methods first. Voice. I do think that we've got to look at voice and think about what is, so voice is the interface. How are we designing surveys? Is it simple as going back to, there's a great best practices methodology literature in telephone surveys, in IVR. It's a simple, interactive voice response that was done over telephones, and that started to be more prevalent and considered in the 1990s. Maybe that's a great starting point, and we should go back and look at that. But how are things changing? Of course, you've got to think about how they're, where are people going to be interacting with this via voice? Is it through their say Amazon and their Echo device in their kitchen and living room, their bedroom? But is it outside the home? How would we want to use it? What's appropriate length and all these different things? So I do feel that voice is something that we do need to be starting to look at quite seriously, very seriously, as a data collection approach and methodology. That said, I do firmly believe that technology in helping us do research differently, and I think that a lot of that is continuing to build upon the great data collection technologies that we have, but making sure that building in automation, using technology that can help with the data quality, building out charts, removing some of those sort of more mundane tasks. I think that because we are in the world that we're looking at speed, those are the types of things where research technology can continue to really help research, and of course in visualization and so on. So I think we have, in terms of technology helping us do research differently, I think there's tools there that are out there and developing, and some of them we have at Focus Vision. Even something as simple as, there's two simple things I'll just bring up that I think helps, because I think this all brings is the ability to upload your Word document, and you have a sort of 80% of your questionnaire created for you. That's a time saving. That's what I mean by technology helping us do research differently, because we want to be spending time on crafting the right questions. We want to be spending time on really developing and extracting those insights nuggets. So we want technology to be able to help us to get there quicker and less painfully. And so the same idea of, hey, you want a whole lot of charts, well, just click a button within Decipher. We have that one-click to PowerPoint, and your charts are there and they're editable. So that kind of thing, I know that's very simplistic kind of answers, but I don't think that those types of technologies and approaches, I think, can all add up to something bigger. And that's how I see research, technology really helping research right now.
Great. Thanks so much, Zoe. And thanks so much for joining us today. I've always wanted to go to CES, so it's nice to get a little peek into it. Unfortunately, it looks like we've reached the end of our time together. But if there are any questions that didn't get answered, we'll follow up soon. Or you can email us at webinars@focusvision.com, and we'll respond to your question at that time. We hope you enjoyed the webinar, 2020 in Clear View, Trends Shaping the Year Ahead. And we hope to see you at future webinars. Have a great day, everybody.